All right, let's just jump right in. There's this massive shift happening in the global financial world. I mean, right under our noses. People are calling it a new Bretton Woods, but for the digital age. And you know what's powering it all? Stablecoins. And trust me, these are way more than just little tokens for crypto traders anymore. We're talking about serious, heavy-hitting instruments of geopolitical power.
Yeah, that quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? This isn't just some tech trend. We are literally living through a complete rewiring of how money and power work on a global scale. And the stakes, they're huge. It's all happening way faster than you might think. So let's get into it. How is this new system actually being put together? So first things first, we need to talk about this new financial order that's starting to take shape. And look, it's really important to get this. We're not just talking about an upgrade to the system we have now. No, this is a total replacement, built from the ground up on a completely different foundation. You know, a little history lesson actually helps here. Back in 1944, you had the Bretton Woods Agreement. That's what made the US dollar the king of currencies, all because it was pegged to gold. Fast forward to today, we're seeing something kind of similar, but with a huge twist. The dollar's power is being extended again, but this time it's not pegged to gold. It's being pegged to code. And the piece of tech right at the center of all this? The stablecoin. The whole idea is actually pretty simple. Just think of them as digital dollars. So for every single one of these tokens, like a USDC or a USDT, there's a real US dollar sitting in a bank somewhere. And that one-to-one peg creates this stable digital asset that can zip around the world in an instant, and you often don't even need a bank to do it.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Stablecoins have evolved way past just being digital money. They are becoming the new plumbing, the new infrastructure for the entire global economy. I mean, they're acting as a global payment system. They can be used for financial surveillance. They're a new kind of economic weapon. And get this, they can even go around old school systems like SWIFT. This is about building a completely new set of financial rails for the world.
Now, you can probably guess what happens next. When you start building new financial rails that have this much power, you're going to spark a fight, a big one. And that brings us right to the main event, the US versus China. It's truly a tale of two totally competing systems, and each one has a very, very different idea of what the future of money should look like.
And man, the difference between these two approaches is just stark. The US model, it's mostly being pushed by private companies, right? So it's all about open networks that anyone can use, what we call permissionless. Think of things like USDC or USDT. They're just run by code. Then you've got China's model, which is the exact opposite. It's a closed, top-down, state-controlled system. Their digital yuan, the ECNY, is permissioned, which is just a fancy way of saying the government sees and controls everything. So what you have is this epic clash of ideas. Open networks versus total control. But here's the twist. While these two superpowers are battling it out, trying to build these massive top-down systems, this same technology is sparking a revolution from the bottom up. And what that's doing is creating this really fascinating shift in power. In a lot of ways, governments are losing control, and regular people are gaining it. And this is especially true in places with really shaky economies. And look, this is not some academic theory. It is happening on the ground right now. Think about it. When your country's currency is just collapsing because of hyperinflation, you're not going to sit around and wait for permission to do something. In places like Argentina or Lebanon, people are already rushing to get their hands on dollar-backed stablecoins just to protect their life savings. It's a totally grassroots movement, looking for the kind of stability their own government just can't give them. So this whole thing actually has a name. It's called shadow dollarization, or basically dollarization without anyone's permission. And you can see how the cycle works, right? Step 1, a country's local currency becomes worthless. Step 2, people start using stable digital dollars to save themselves. And the final step, the government completely loses control over its own money. Its power over the economy just evaporates, because people are simply choosing a better option. And you can imagine, this puts these governments in a terrible spot. It's a huge dilemma, because it's not just that they're losing control over their currency. Their tax base, the money they need to run the country, can just vanish as wealth quietly flows into these borderless digital systems. It's way harder to track, way harder to tax. I mean, power and money are literally draining away from the state right before their eyes. All right, so if all this money and power is flowing into these new borderless networks, that leads us to the next logical question. What does this mean for investors? This is the final piece of the puzzle. Because when money goes borderless, well, so does managing that money. And it's even changing what we think of as an asset in the first place. The next really big thing to watch for here is something called real-world assets, or RWAs. The idea is to take physical stuff, things like real estate or company bonds, even fine art, and turn them into digital tokens that live on a blockchain. This is the absolute key. It's the bridge that's going to connect this new digital financial world to the trillions, and I mean trillions of dollars locked up in the traditional economy. And for anyone investing, this changes the whole game. All the risks you're used to, like inflation or what the central bank does with interest rates, they're still there. But now you have a whole new set of digital dangers to worry about. Things like protocol failure, which basically means the software itself could break, or a government suddenly deciding to crack down. And managing your wealth, it's less about your home country's laws now and more about figuring out how to navigate these complicated cross-chain platforms that exist everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So who's actually doing this stuff right now? Well, it's the really sophisticated investors, the big family offices with tons of money. They are already jumping on this. They're using these new tools to be super efficient with their taxes on a global scale, to keep their wealth more private, and to get their hands on financial tools they could never access back home. The big takeaway is this. In this new world, your wealth is no longer stuck in one country. It's global. So when you pull it all together, this is the future that's being built right now, as we speak. A new global order is being put in place. It's one where stablecoins and tokenized assets are building a system where the rules aren't just written by politicians and regulators anymore. They're being written in code. And where power doesn't just belong to nations, it belongs to networks. I mean, it is such a profound shift. And it leaves us with this massive, critical question. For centuries, our entire world has been organized around the power of nation-states. But are we now entering a totally new era where the most powerful force on the planet isn't a nation, but a network? So if you came into this thinking this was just a niche story about digital money, it's time to think bigger. This transformation of the global order has only just begun.